I'm staring at the last glass of whiskey at the bar. The man reflected in the glass surface. Is that me? Or his shadow? I'm no longer sure. Manhattan's humid summer night seeps in through the windows. The AC is broken, the ceiling fan spinning like a dead insect. The bartender had already retreated to a corner and started looking at his phone. It was 2 a.m, and I was alone in this abandoned place. Silas Vance, that name, was once an echo with meaning. A father, a brother, a friend in a case. Now it holds only the silence of loneliness. I down the whiskey in one gulp. The burning heat in my throat isn't enough to melt the ice cold inside me. 2 years ago, it all started tonight. 2 years ago at this hour, I opened my eyes on a summer night like this, but not at a bar. Inside a laboratory tank. My lungs were burning, my body filled with a substance I didn't recognize, and there was only one image in my mind: Lily's laughter, my daughter's laughter. I don't even remember when I last heard that laughter. Maybe you've experienced such moments too. Moments when something changes forever, when an abyss opens between past and future. When you stand at the edge of that abyss, you realize there's no going back. I didn't fall into the abyss that night. I became the abyss itself. I set the glass on the counter. The bartender doesn't even look up. To him, I'm just another drunk, another lost soul trying to drown the wreckage of his life in alcohol. I wish it were that simple. I close my eyes, and that night returns, as it does every night, with every awakening, every breath, every heartbeat. Thanatos. That was the project's code name, the god of death in Greek mythology. And they sacrificed us, me, my friends, thousands of innocents on this god's altar. My memory is fragmented. I can't remember the whole story as one piece, but there are fragments. Sharp, painful, bleeding fragments. And tonight, after this last whiskey, I'll try to piece those fragments together, perhaps for the last time. Imagine, one morning you open your eyes and you don't know who you are. Your body doesn't belong to you. Something other than blood flows through your veins. And around you, inside glass tubes, things that were once human are rotting. That's what I woke up to that morning. My name is Silas Vance. I'm 34 years old. I have a daughter named Lily. She must be 7 now. I have a sister, Elena, probably still thinks I'm dead. And I had 3 friends: Marcus, Yara, Dimitri. Had, I say, because they're gone now. The bartender's radio plays an old song with a slight crackle. A familiar melody, but I can't remember its name. That's how my memory works now. Some things crystal clear, others dissolving like ink in water. But I remember that night. The night Thanatos was born. And the night I saw death's true face. General Victor Harlan, Conrad Voss. These 2 names leave a bitter taste on my tongue. One the dark face of the state, the other the greedy fangs of capital. Together, they created a monster. UMBRA. That's the name of the virus. Latin for shadow. And now that shadow lives inside me. In every particle of my body. In every thought. Some call it strength, but for me, it's the curse of pain. I'm aware enough to realize both are true. But I must tell this story for my city, for my friends Dimitri, Marcus, and Yara, for our people who died in this city of poverty. Maybe one day for my baby Lily, in case my baby asks one day, who was my father? Those who have experienced such difficulties will understand what I mean. Something must remain of a person, a trace, a story, perhaps even a truth. Otherwise, what is the point of that suffering? I open my eyes. The dim light in the bar burns my eyes, but I don't care. I'm used to pain by now. Pain has become my most faithful companion these 2 years. So let me begin. From the beginning. From the moment I opened my eyes in that tank. From the night, everything changed. It was raining in Manhattan that night. How do I know? Because I remember the rain hitting my face when I escaped from the facility. Cold, merciless, purifying, as if the world was trying to wash me. But some stains never come out. When I woke up in the tank, the first thing I felt was drowning panic. My lungs were filled with liquid. My eyes were burning. My body felt like it didn't belong to me. But something inside me, an instinct, moved me. UMBRA. I didn't know its name then, of course. I just thought it was survival instinct. My body's last struggle. But no, it was something else. Another being that protected me, kept me standing, kept me alive. The glass shattered. The liquid spilled, and I fell onto the cold floor of the laboratory, naked, shivering, understanding nothing. What I saw when I looked around would stop the heart of anyone who experienced this moment. Tanks. Dozens, maybe hundreds of tanks. And inside them, things that were once human. Deformed bodies, distorted faces, expressions frozen in pain. Some were still moving, barely, twitching in the liquid. Most were motionless. It was as if I had fallen into the land of the dead. And I, somehow, was the only one who came out alive from among those dead. Why? I've been asking myself this question for 2 years. Why me? Why was my DNA compatible? Why did thousands die while I lived? I still don't have the answer. Maybe I'll never know. But on that silent night on the lab floor, these thoughts never even crossed my mind. My only goal was to get out of there, to survive, and reach my daughter. I wanted it like a prayer, like a scream, a point to hold on to Lily. And right then, the alarm started ringing. When the alarm started, my body still wasn't obeying me. On my knees, on the cold laboratory floor, stark naked and defenseless. Red lights danced on the walls. Sirens pierced my ears. And somewhere, in the corridors, screams had begun. Human screams, but not just human. There was something else. Growls, roars, sounds I couldn't identify. As if the gates of hell had opened, and what was inside was spilling out. I tried to stand up. My legs were shaking. My arms were cramping. But something inside me, that instinctual power, pushed me up. Get up, it said, wordless, silent, but definite. Get up or die. And I got up. My first steps were like a baby learning to walk. Staggering, holding on to walls, as if about to fall any moment. But I got stronger with each step, as if my body was rebuilding itself. When I stepped into the corridor, what I saw, if you've experienced such nightmares, you'll understand, were moments when the line between reality and nightmare dissolved. There were soldiers, men in obsidian division uniforms, but they were fighting each other. No, they weren't fighting. Some were attacking others. Eyes reddened, foam coming from their mouths, creatures that had ceased to be human. They were infected. UMBRA was out of control. And I, the virus's only successful experiment, was advancing through that chaos. I don't exactly remember how I got through. Some moments crystal clear, others dark. In one corridor, I saw a test subject clinging to a soldier's throat. In another room, scientists' corpses were piled between tables. Broken glass, blood trails, overturned equipment. It was a battlefield, and I was gliding through that field like a ghost. When I opened a door, I saw him, Dmitri. I didn't recognize him at first. How could I? The man who was once a tech genius, our paranoid hacker, was no longer that. In the corner of a cell, knees pulled to his chest, rocking back and forth. His body had changed. Strange protrusions on his back, distorted spots on his face. His hands had grown to twice their normal size, his fingers elongated. And his eyes, those bright, intelligent eyes, now stared empty and dead. Dmitri? My voice came out hoarse. My throat was still burning from that liquid. He raised his head. For a moment, I saw recognition in his eyes. A spark, but then it extinguished. "Numbers," he said. "Numbers won't stop. Inside my head, won't stop, won't stop, won't stop." He was delirious. Completely insane. "Dimitri, it's me, Silas. Can you hear me?" I took a step toward him. At that moment he screamed. An ear-splitting, bone-chilling scream. "They're coming. They're everywhere. Inside my head. I see it. I see everything." His eyes were fixed on the wall. He was trying to scratch it with his nails. His nails were bleeding, but he didn't even care about the pain. It was as if he had noticed something on the wall and wanted to get it. He seemed to be after something we couldn't see. The virus was destroying his brain. He was no longer the friend I knew. What could I do? Nothing. I approached him, tried to touch his shoulder, but at that moment, his eyes rolled up. His whole body tensed. Blood came from his mouth, and then he stopped. Just stopped. He fell, slowly like a leaf, into my arms. When I held him, he was still warm. His heart was still beating, faintly, barely, but his eyes were open and looking at me. This time, he was really looking at me. "Silas?" His lips barely moved. "I'm here, friend. I'm here. Yara. Fine, Yara. She know." His sentence was cut short. He took his last breath. In my arms, on that cold laboratory floor, my friend died. If you've witnessed a person's final moments, you know how loud that silence is. Sirens were ringing, screams continued, but I heard only silence. The silence of Dimitri's heart that no longer beat. I laid him on the floor, closed his eyes. I had nothing to say. Should I pray? To which God? To the God who did this to us? I stood up. Yara. Dimitri had said her name with his last breath. So Yara was somewhere around here too. Or had been once. But I couldn't search for her now. First, I had to get out of here. I had to survive. When I returned to the corridor, a soldier appeared in front of me. Uniformed, armed, normal eyes. Not infected, but his weapon was pointed at me. Subject 47. Stay where you are. Subject 47. So that's what I was to them. Not a name, a number, a lab rat. Lower your weapon, I said. My voice was surprisingly calm. I want to get out of here. Don't move. Hands up. He shouted. I didn't raise my hands. Instead, I took a step toward him. He fired. The bullet had shattered my chest, or so it felt. I felt an excruciatingly sharp pain, but at that very moment, Umbra shielded me like a steel vest. The pain vanished instantly. In what felt like a fraction of a second before my eyes, the bullet disappeared. I'll never forget the expression on the soldier's face. Pure, unadulterated fear. What the F? He couldn't finish his sentence, because I had moved. How? I don't know. One moment I was 10 meters away. The next I was in front of him. My hand was on his throat. I didn't want to kill. I swear I didn't. But UMBRA had decided for me. In that moment, that first moment, I wasn't the one in control. The soldier fell to the ground. Not dead, just passed out. But if I had held on a few more seconds, he would have been. I looked at my hands. My fingers were trembling. The hands that held my baby had just taken a man's life. Who was I now? Maybe you're wondering too, about the magnitude of power, about being a superhuman. Let me tell you, it's terrifying. It feels terrible, because you don't know the limits of that power. You don't know where your control ends. And most importantly, you don't know where that power will take you. I started running, through corridors, stairs, fire exits. Chaos was everywhere. Infected soldiers, scientists trying to escape, locking doors, collapsing ceilings. And I glided through that chaos like a ghost. When I found the exit, it was past midnight. I kicked the door, the metal bent, and I burst outside. Rain hit my face. The lights of Manhattan caught my eye from afar. The facility was far from the city. It was in an industrial area. The city was now visible, and I saw that city where my whole life had passed. The city where my daughter was. A facility was disappearing behind me. The sound of an explosion came from behind me. Someone, maybe Obsidian Division commanders, was trying to destroy evidence or control the virus. Whatever it was, I didn't care. All I could think about was Lily. I started running. In the rain, with a body I didn't know, toward an uncertain future. But there was something in my pocket. I hadn't noticed it when I left the laboratory. A photograph. Crumpled, wet, but still visible. Lily's smiling face. I don't know how it was there. Maybe someone had put it there. Maybe I had, before remembering. But that photograph kept me standing that night. I would reach my daughter, at any cost. When I reached the city, the sun was rising. The rain had stopped, but I was still soaked. Crouched behind a dumpster, watching my hands. My veins had taken on a blackish color. Something was moving under my skin, visibly, like waves. Umbra was adapting. To me, or I to it, it didn't matter anymore. I was still wearing clothes stolen from a dead man at the laboratory. A security guard's pants, a technician's shirt. Neither fit me. Both were blood-stained. People passing on the street didn't see me. That's how New York is. Everyone lives in their own world. A man collapsing on the corner? Just another homeless person. Ignored? Keep walking. That indifference saved me at that moment. But I also noticed something. When I looked at the crowd, when I saw people's faces, a hunger awakened inside me. An indefinable urge. To go toward them, to touch them, to know. I shook my head. This thought wasn't mine. It was UMBRA's urge. The virus wasn't just protecting me. It wanted to grow too. To consume. To consume. And I, as the only conscious being inside it, had to fight this urge. Perhaps among those listening to me now are people struggling with addiction. Those who know that uncontrollable desire. Those who feel something trying to take you over. That's what UMBRA was like. Constant, silent, insistent. And I still didn't know how strong it was. I found a phone booth, and there was still a little bit of credit left. I held the phone to my ear. I called Elena. My hands were shaking. It rang exactly 3 times, and I heard Elena's voice. I hadn't heard it in 2 years. Wait, had it been longer than that? It had only been a few days, but it felt like a lifetime to me. Hello? Who is this? I couldn't speak. My throat was knotted. What would I say? It's Silas. I'm not dead, but I'm not human anymore either. Listen, these silent calls will be reported to the police. Don't call again. She hung up. I stared at the receiver. It just stayed in my hand. Elena was angry. She must have been scared. Who knows how many threats she'd received during this time. After we were thrown in, her life must have turned to hell. Being the family of government dissidents isn't easy. Especially not this government's. I put the receiver back. I couldn't approach her. Not yet. First, I had to understand myself. This virus, this power, this curse. And one more thing. Could I infect them? This thought paralyzed me. What if I touch Lily and she becomes like me? What if I destroy her while trying to protect her? What if this shadow passes to her along with me? No, I couldn't take this risk. I started walking down the street. I didn't know where I was going. I just had to move. To think, to plan, to remain human. Suddenly, something very strange happened. In a store, televisions caught my eye. They were all talking about the same thing. A news story and a familiar face. The facility, the place I had managed to escape from yesterday. But it was as if it had vanished. Only a crater remained. Massive, pitch-black hole, as if a meteor had fallen. The reporter's voice reached me through the glass. Officials stated the explosion was caused by a gas leak, an industrial accident. Casualties are not yet clear, but it's estimated that hundreds died. The surrounding population has been urged not to panic. Gas leak, a disaster where thousands of subjects, hundreds of soldiers, dozens of scientists died. And the official statement was gas leak. Of course they'd say that. No one should know about the Thanatos project. Even Obsidian Division's existence was secret. And now all the evidence had vanished at the bottom of a crater. I paused for a moment. All the evidence? I was evidence. I was still alive. And what I carried inside me, UMBRA, was proof of the world's most dangerous weapon. They would search for me. They would find me. And when they did, they'd either take me back or kill me. This awareness woke me up. I was no longer just a victim, not a fugitive. I was a target. And being a target meant being hunted. I fixed my eyes on the window. I saw my reflection in the glass. A man I didn't recognize. Dark circles around his eyes. Sharpened cheekbones. Wild gaze. Was this me? In the shadow of the glass, a cell moved beneath my skin. Umbra was revealing itself. A survival reflex had begun. Or perhaps it was simply making itself felt. And in that moment, I saw a vehicle. An SUV. It was examining me, unaware that I was doing the same. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. 4 men got out. Black suits, earpieces, and gun bulges under their jackets. Obsidian Division. They'd found me. This quickly. How? Cameras? Witnesses? Or could they somehow track the virus inside me? It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was, I had to run. I walked, my breath matching the pace of my heart. I sped up, began running with all my strength. I had already been spotted. Virus number 47 detected. Capture it. I blended into the crowd of people and vanished into the darkness of the streets, over the cars. Umbra was accelerating my body. I was moving at a speed no normal human could run, but they were prepared too. More vehicles appeared, more agents. They were closing off all the streets. I turned into an alley, dead end. When I turned around, 4 agents had blocked the entrance. Their weapons were pointed at me. Get on the ground. Hands behind your head. Anyone who's been in this situation knows that feeling of helplessness. Cornered, trapped, a prey with nowhere to run. But I was no longer prey. Umbra was surging inside me. Not fear, anger. Not impulse will. Right at that moment, the virus and I focused on the same thing for the first time. Staying alive. My eyes closed, and I surrendered myself to the savagery. I didn't even understand what was happening. Everything became blurry. I heard sounds. Screams, gunshots, the sound of bones shattering. When I opened my eyes, 4 agents were lying on the ground. They weren't moving. I looked at my hands. They were covered with a black substance. Over my skin, like gloves, but alive. It was moving, and slowly, within seconds, it withdrew. Returned under my skin. UMBRA. The shadow had protected me. But the cost was 4 men's blood on my hands. Were they dead? I didn't check. I couldn't. I just ran. Out of that alley, into another street, into another alley, until I lost the pursuit. And then under a roof, in the shadow of an abandoned building, I collapsed. What had I become? A monster? A weapon? Or still human? There was no answer, only questions. And inside me, waiting silently, waiting for the next outburst, a shadow. UMBRA. I stayed in the abandoned building that night. This used to be an office building. Now, a pile of rubble. I found myself in the midst of hell. I felt as if there was no one close to me. and no strength to fight. How difficult that night was. How difficult that darkness was. Outside night had fallen, and the city's distant hum reached this ruin. Sirens, horns, sounds of life. A life I was no longer part of. I took Lily's photograph from my pocket. It was crumpled. Its edges were torn, but her face was still visible. That innocent smile. Those sparkling eyes. My 5-year-old daughter, beautiful as the world itself, looked at me through the camera as if she possessed all the innocence in the world. But I couldn't remember when this had happened. Was it in the park or in the garden? My memory wouldn't help me. Umbra wasn't content with tearing my body apart. It was trying to take my memories too. But I remembered Lily. I could never forget her. The nights she slept in my arms as a baby. The surprise on her face when she took her first steps. The first moment she said, "Daddy." Those little hands wrapping around my fingers. Daddy. Did this word still belong to me? A father protects his child. A father returns home. A father doesn't become a monster. But I had betrayed all three. I looked at the photograph, looked into Lily's eyes. And for the first time, that night, I really cried. Silent, trembling, uncontrolled. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Salty, warm, human. Umbra hadn't prevented me from crying. Maybe it too knew this was necessary. Or maybe it didn't understand what tears meant. I don't know. If you have a child, you understand this feeling. When you think of them, your heart clenches. When you can't touch them, your soul shatters. And when you think you can't protect them, the whole world collapses on you. That night, I was crushed under that weight. But being crushed is one thing, breaking another. The tears stopped. My breath steadied. And in the dark, in that corner of the ruin, I made a decision. I would find them. Elaine and Lily. But first, I had to control the monster inside me. I had to be sure I wouldn't hurt them. And the way to understand it was not to fight this virus, but to internalize it. I had to understand Umbra, what it could do, its limits, its shortcomings. I had to take it into my own hands, or else I would cease to exist. And there was one more important matter. As Dimitri was dying, he whispered a name, Yara. This woman was still out there somewhere. Maybe outside the facility, maybe somewhere else entirely. But Dimitri said this woman was the key to Thanatos, to Umbra, to whoever threw us into this apocalypse. I had to find Marcus too, our group's brave journalist. Was he a subject too? Was he alive? Dead? I didn't know. I knew nothing. But I would learn. I stood up. My legs were still shaking, but I wasn't falling anymore. Umbra continued repairing my body. My wounds were closing. My energy was returning. I walked to the window. Through the broken glass, I looked at Manhattan. Lights. Millions of lights. Each one a life. Each one a story. And none knew my story. The city continued. As it always did. There had been a disaster. The official statement said, gas leak, and everyone moved on. Tomorrow, it will be a small news item in a newspaper column. Then a week later, those people will be forgotten. Thousands of lives lost, thousands of citizens. But I will never forget the one who did this. And when the time comes, I will hold him accountable. The one who did this, Victor Harlan. The man at the head of Obsidian Division. The pragmatic monster who saw us as necessary losses. Conrad Voss, founder of Dominion Biotech. The greedy snake who turned science into weapons, humans into subjects. Both would pay, but revenge would come later. Now first I had to survive. I should have been stronger, clung more to life, been able to protect my loved ones. This country did not create me, but it was what shaped me. I would hide in these dark streets. I would exist in these silent shadows. And when I emerged from these shadows, no one would be able to harm me anymore. I would be the voice of silence. The shadow they created. And shadows are invisible, but everywhere. I put the photograph back in my pocket. "I'll come back to you, Lily," I said. My voice echoed in the empty room. "I promise." The words hung in the air. No one heard. No one answered, but I heard. And that was enough. I didn't sleep that night. I just waited. Waited for the sun to rise, for the city to wake, for a new day to begin. And when the sun rose, I moved too. The first day was over, but the story was just beginning. If you had been there that night, you would have seen that figure standing at the window of the abandoned building. A shadow in the darkness. Not moving, seeming not to breathe, but watching everything. Me, Silas Vance, Subject 47. UMBRA's only successful carrier, and Manhattan's most dangerous secret. I didn't die that night, but I wasn't born either. I transformed into something. Somewhere between human and monster, stuck between light and dark, neither fully alive nor fully dead. A shadow, and shadows never disappear. They just wait for the right moment, the right time, and the right revenge. I'm looking at the whiskey glass at the bar now, thinking of that night. I won't run away from that facility, losing Dimitri, the first people I took lives from. No, I didn't harm anyone that night. I only knocked them unconscious. Or so I hope. In the gloom of that moment, I don't even know what I did. And this uncertainty is tearing my heart apart. For 2 whole years now. The bartender headed to the register. Closing time is approaching. He'll kick me out soon, politely or not, doesn't matter. I won't sleep again tonight. When I sleep, nightmares come. Dimitri's face, Marcus's face, Yara's face. The faces of those I killed and those I couldn't kill. But tomorrow, the sun will rise again. And I'll be standing again, because Lily is waiting. Because the story isn't over. Because shadows never die. They just learn to live. With darkness, with pain, and with the past they can't forget.